This was the sequel I didn't know I needed. Okay, so let's talk about the 2014 movie Planes, Fire and Rescue, which is a sequel to the 2013 movie Planes. And I always found that that was a really quick turnaround. There's usually many years between sequels in the Disney animated, computer animated universe. But what I thought was really interesting about this particular sequel is it takes the character of Dusty Crophopper into a completely different direction. The first one is basically a sports movie. You know, he is a crop duster who wants to become a racer. And he goes through the training and overcomes the obstacles and the antagonists and all that jazz. So that way he can be more than what he was built to be, as he says in the movie. And in this one, what ends up happening is that the movie starts with his success as a racer. You know, he's like winning lots of races. He's a very famous celebrity, and he's enjoying all of that. He's enjoying the fruits of his labor, giving credit to his teammates and, you know, Dottie, his mechanic, you know, Skipper, his coach, and all of that. And then what ends up happening early on is that on a training session with Skipper, something happens to his engine and he almost crashes. Now he doesn't, of course, and his mechanic Dottie looks at him and investigates to see what exactly happened, and she finds that there has been irreparable damage done to his engine. And because of that, he can never race again. And so now he's dealing with that. Like, he worked so hard to be a racer. You know, he experienced incredible amount of success, and from one day to the next, it is done. Then a crazy set of circumstances happen, and a fire breaks out in the city of Propwash Junction on the runway. They have a very old, you know, firefighting truck. Mayday is his name, voiced by Hal Holbrook. And he, you know, goes to put out the fire, but he's too old. And so Dusty and other people help him. But in the course of doing that, they broke so many regulations, you know, from a runway perspective. And so they have to shut down the runway until everything is in compliance. But because that happened, you know, they're not going to have this big festival that's going to happen. So that's a big blow to the economy. And the only way to fix it is to have an extra firefighter. So Dusty volunteers to go train and become certified to be a firefighter. And so as he does that, he meets a new group of aircrafts that, you know, are helping him along the way, you know. And you have Blade Ranger, voiced by Ed Harris. You have Windlifter, voiced by Wes Studi. You have Dipper, voiced by Julie Bowen. A little like forklift type of car, voiced by Regina King, who does a great job. And, you know, now it's not a sports movie anymore. You know, it's like now he's becoming more than just a racer. Now he is giving back. He's doing something to be of service to his community, not just winning races and being famous and signing autographs. And, you know, there's a great moment because everyone that he encounters, you know, at this new training place, being a firefighter is a second career. You know, you have cargo planes, and you have Blade Ranger, who used to be an actor, who now is the one leading the way and training Dusty. And so, you know, he kind of finds some connection with a lot of these guys. What I thought was probably the climax as far as a character development moment is concerned is there's this great scene between Blade Ranger and Dusty Crophopper where he finally, you know, tells Blade Ranger, like, you know, I'm never going to be a racer again. You know, it's like, who am I? And he's having this whole kind of identity crisis in that moment. And Blade Ranger says, look, life doesn't always happen the way we expect it to. Bad things happen, and it's up to us to make the best of it. So what are you going to do next is basically the thesis of his response. And so while the first movie, the big moral is, you can be more than what you were built to be. This one is, and you can still be more. You're not just boxed in as was before in this case, a racer. You can do something that is still meaningful, not just to you, but to other people around you. So I thought that was a great, little message that is within there, because the story of it is still king, and eventually there's a big fire that happens in that area, and they have to, work together in a very particular way for them to put out that fire and lead everyone to safety. And it's just, the humor is there, the tone is there, and it's just tons of fun. The rewatchability is very, very high, not because of how the characters in the story are shaped, but also from a time perspective. I mean, the runtime officially is 124 minutes, but if you take away the last sequence and the end credits, this movie is about an hour and 10, so it flies by, but it doesn't feel like you're missing on anything. It hits all the important story beats that a script should have, and it just feels satisfying. It's kind of the opposite, where you have some 2-hour movies that feel like 3 hours, or you have 3 hours that feel like 2 hours. But this particular one just feels just right, and I was very surprised at how short the movie is when you take away those last two pieces. Anyways, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.